All right, thanks guys for joining me. My name is Kamogelo Senyati. I had to remind myself. Kamogelo Senyati. I have been on a journey. Hey, I've been on a journey for a long time, trying to figure out and understand what is going on with my body for the longest of time. I'm 32. I just turned 32, and I started having my periods at the age of 13. So from the age of 13 until I'd say 29, I've just been in a state of wondering what is wrong with my body, right? Why am I suffering like this? What do I need to do to get better? But I think most for me, it was always a matter of what is going on, right? Even when I was offered like treatments, I just felt like they were very inadequate in addressing the question, what is going on? I'm a research scientist by profession, so my brain is constantly trying to figure things out. I'm a problem solver. I'm always wanting to understand the nitty-gritty of things. Like, I need details to function. So when people don't give me that, I kind of zone out, and I get obsessed with trying to figure out and understand. And once I get that answer, for me, that's empowering. I don't like to just do things for the sake of doing them. So when I think growing up, I was the chubby kid in our family. We were all eating the same food, essentially, but I was the one that was gaining weight. So in retrospect, a lot of the stuff I'm going to say them with the benefit of hindsight. Now looking back, I realize that's because I have a different genetic makeup to my siblings. We all do, and they all manifest in different ways. But for me, particularly when it came to my diet, it was very evident that, okay, I'm not like everyone else. We ate the same. We more or less do the same physical activities in terms of like exercising and playing sports. So why is it that now my body's acting this way? I wasn't conscious of my body, like, oh my God, I'm fat. No, I wasn't. I wasn't like teased or told like, oh my gosh, you need to lose weight. But I just knew that, okay, I'm bigger than my siblings, especially my older sister. And I think at around about the age of 11, I think that's when I became more conscious to that difference. Obviously, there's other features like your height, but once I hit puberty, I think I became more conscious. I think it's just part of nature. But at the age of 13, so I started my periods at the age of 13. And the first period is always just an announcement that we're here, but it's not like anything hectic. Then 6 months went by, I didn't get a period. I think my next period came when I was in grade 8. And boy, did it arrive. So now I'm having 10 days of bleeding. They weren't that heavy, but 10 days of bleeding is a lot. I didn't think to tell my mom, because I just thought, oh, it's a period, this is how it is, it starts and it ends when it wants to, I didn't think, no man, something is wrong. So I didn't tell my mom what was happening. I don't think then I was experiencing period pains. And after that initial 6 months, after that it became regular. So every month I knew 10 days bleeding, it finishes. Until in grade 9. Now I think grade 7, grade 8, I was at my heaviest. I was 13, 14, and I was wearing a size 40. I remember there was an incident where my aunt, she's a seamstress, and she makes clothes, right? And then I had skirts and dresses that were size 38 and 40. And it would be the funniest thing when my aunts, my mom's sisters, would argue amongst themselves as to whose clothes those were. Tumi, I said how, Tlochi, I said how. And then we're like, no, that's not mine, that's not mine. And then I'd come in, I'm like, that's mine. They were like, what? You wear the same size clothes as us? No. And I shrugged it off. And at the time, like, my mom would, when we do grocery shopping, we used to go to Macro, right? And in Macro, you get bulk things. So we would have, it was literally like a tuck shop, because there was like December, there was sweets, juice, lots of cheese, which I've always just loved and have been addicted to, which is something that was both a trigger and a sign that something wasn't right with me. So that sort of diet contributed obviously to my weight, and it contributing to my weight would obviously have an effect on my hormones at the time. So I think round about then, that's when my mom was like, maybe I'm overdoing it with the food that I'm giving these kids access to. I mean, can you imagine every day when I go to school, I'd have sweets in my pocket, in my blazer pockets, and then I'd have like December, and then like we had like ice lollies, like whatever we wanted, we got. I think then my mom decided, no, I don't think this is healthy. She cut down our food drastically, so all that junk was no longer available. And from grade 9 going to grade 10, I lost a lot of weight, actually, just by that adjustment. Lost a lot of weight, but the damage was already done because I was still having those 10-day periods. So in grade 9, my period came twice in 1 month. That's when I was like, this is ridiculous. I can endure a 10-day period, but twice in a month? No, we're not doing that. So I had a bit of a panic attack at school, and my dad had to come fetch me. Then he asked me, like, what's wrong? Why are you crying? I'm like, my period came back. And he was like, okay, let me call your mom. Called my mom. She's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, my period is back. She's like, no, put your dad on the phone. Take her to the doctor, So sat there with the doctor. I don't know where I got this idea from, but when the doctor was like explaining it to me, she's like, okay, so we're going to try and put you on some contraceptives. I was like, no. She's like, no, we don't think you're sexually active. I'm like, I know, I don't want contraceptives. She's like, but why not? I'm like, because you're not fixing anything. You're just masking the problem. What's going to happen in 10, 15 years when I stop taking them? The problem is still going to be there, if not worse. And she was like, okay, all right, we'll try and investigate what's wrong. But she did give me a treatment. I think it was hormonal. I don't remember the name, that I took while I was on my period, only on the days that I was bleeding. And that helped to reduce my period to like 7 days. And I took that treatment for like 3 months. So when that happened, I stopped going to her because I was like, I got what I wanted. My period has stabilized. So then it was 7 days long, every 5 weeks, on the clock. But it was quite excruciatingly painful. To the point that I would be throwing up, I don't even know how I functioned throughout high school, honestly, given the drama that I experienced with my periods. So in terms of my preferences of things that I loved eating that I couldn't do without, I love cheese. I was cutting a slice of cheese as thick as a slice of bread. My mom knew if she bought that 1 kg loaf of cheese, I will not let it go. I will sit there, and everybody knew in my family, like, yo, Kamo loves cheese. And now, knowing that my anemia made me crave ice, it still does. So we had one of those old fridges that had like the frosting on the sides. So when I tell you, I would sneak into the kitchen and take a spoon and just go like, like I would do that every day, all day. To the point that I used to, even instead of going to the kitchen to fetch a tablespoon to use, I would quite literally put one on top of the fridge. Because I'm a bit tall, so I put it at the top of the fridge, and my mom kept finding it, and she's like, Yawan, she told me, she's like, I had an aunt who used to sit and eat this frost the way you do, and she actually died of, I think she said ovarian cancer, but it's some cancer of the womb. And I was like, I should probably stop. But that teenage brain with lack of inhibition, I kept going to the point that they had to buy a new fridge that was frost free. Then I had to try and find other ways to satisfy my craving, Cool. That continued until I got to varsity in 2009 during my first year. I think the change in environment and added stress of university made things worse, because now I wasn't even able to like get out of bed when I was on my periods. Like, if I'm on my periods, I'm missing class. I'd have to maybe try and stabilize myself and medicate so that I can at least attend the practicals in the afternoon. Class is fine, I can get notes from friends, but practicals and things, I needed to be there myself. So at this point in time, I'm not trying to change my diet. I think I've also just been accustomed to, oh, this is just how I am, because I think my family also just had that reaction, like, oh, o tshwana le mane mang mang, oh, o tshwana le rakgadi mang mang, yeah, no, Liana, she struggles, oh, okay, painkillers, we got painkillers, and we just go on with life. But I think just in general in society, women are taught to just deal with it. Periods are something that we don't talk about openly and often in families. And when somebody has a problem like that, where you're like a heavy bleeder, a long bleeder with pains, they just say, oh, you'll get better when you have kids, no, after your firstborn child, then you will heal. No, that's how we all went through that, because it's been normalized. So I just continued with life in that way. I think in 2014, so now I'm doing my master's, and the intensity of my periods is getting progressively worse. So they're getting progressively heavier. So now I no longer had 5-day periods. Now there were 6 days. After 6-7 months, they 7 days. Now it's 8 days. So they were getting to a point where I'm reverting back to when I was like, oh, I need to figure out what that medication was. So there I am on Google, and I'm not finding anything. I think 2014, starting my master's, the stress just got a lot, and that contributed to the exacerbation of my symptoms. But I think just prolonged diet, just the way I was eating anything and everything I ever wanted to eat, no limitations. If I craved ice cream, I had ice cream. If I craved chocolate, I had chocolate. Even if it made me feel terrible, it's fine. I'll eat it. It's okay. I'll take a painkiller. I'll pop this. I'll pop that. I think that year, that's when now I was missing 2-3 days of being on campus. It's a bit better because I'm a postgrad, so I have I have more control of my time. It's not like in undergrad, so I could email my professors and be like, profs, I'm not coming in today, I'm sick, my periods. The first 2 to 3 times they were sympathetic. After that, they were like, do something about it. There are things that can be done. But obviously in their minds, just take the contract, just take hormones, but they were obviously speaking more from a perspective of getting me okay so that I can continue with the project more than like my actual well-being. And this time I'm like throwing up. I have pain running down my entire left leg. My butthole is cramping. It was, it was a crime scene. It was really a crime scene, and it was my norm. It was my norm. But I think it was getting to a point where like it's ringing at the back of my mind, rather, like, okay, what is actually going on? So I'm here and there, I'm trying to research, trying to figure out, okay, what can I do, but not extensively, just trying to understand, like, what is this that's happening. And I think in 2017, I was doing my second year of my PhD, and I was just like, I need to understand what's going on with my body. And the previous year, I had started Herbalife. So I was taking Herbalife to help me gain weight because I really struggled. How ironic, from being the chubby kid to being the one who's always skinny and not able to gain weight. So I was trying to gain weight in a healthy way. And it was working. So a lot of proteins, a lot of tuna, a lot of eggs. I've always had eggs. So then I was like amping it up, like 3-4 eggs a day, every day. So the thing for me was that, okay, I'm eating healthier and cleaner, but my period is getting worse. This makes absolutely no sense. You would think that it would get better. And because I was eating eggs so much, I think there was a month that we didn't buy eggs, and I think we just forgot to buy eggs. So that month I wasn't eating eggs. When my period came, it was so much more calmer. And I was like, oh, the eggs are affecting me. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to eat eggs anymore. Then I couldn't afford to continue with the Herbalife program. And I remember speaking to my coach at the time, and I'm like, I think I was starting to cut down on dairy, but I wanted to go completely dairy free. And then he was telling me that, no, a lot of our products, especially the protein products, they were using like seasoned protein, which is a protein taken from milk. And then I was like, okay. And then the other stuff, Now I know it's like made with soy products. So even though my other diet was cleaner, but not really actually, now that I know, I was now taking these supplements that were very inflammatory for my body. So they had the cow's milk protein and the soy protein, terrible for someone who was struggling with periods the way I was. And there was another supplement that used to be available to help with periods, but then they discontinued it. So me not being able to afford Herbalife was sort of like a blessing in disguise, because then I stopped taking all those products. So 2017, I don't know what pushed me. I decided to go to the gynae for like a checkup, because, I think my professors were like, just go for a checkup and just to know and understand, you don't want to leave this problem undiagnosed. And then when you're older or when you're ready to have kids, you have like a big problem. Meanwhile, the warning signs were there all along. So decided to go to a gynae. Now, this is in Cape Town. There aren't many black people. Well, there aren't many black professionals. So I just was like, so long as it's a woman. So I took a white lady as a gynecologist. I got there. Now, mind you, I'm a person who hates doctors. If I'm sick, I call my mom. Mom, what must I take? No, mix this, mix that, ginger, what, and I'll be fine. The only time I go to the doctor is to get a sick note. Outside of that, I hate going to the doctor. I absolutely hate it. But don't be like me. Go to your doctors. So I went to this gynecologist. I think I spent less than 15 minutes in her office. So I explained my symptoms, and she was like, okay, how old are you? Do you have any kids? Okay, lay on the table. She did the ultrasound. She's like, okay, I see. Because I was like, my biggest concern is that I have endometriosis. That's my biggest one. And she was like, okay, no, let's check and see what's happening. And she was like, less than 5 minutes, she was in my uterus. And she was like, oh, you've got some cysts. But no, there's no actual, there's nothing wrong anatomically. But now looking back, I'm like, you didn't actually check well enough. And she's like, okay, got off the table. She's like, okay, so I think we should just go put you on birth control. And then if that works to alleviate your symptoms, you keep taking it. I'm like, doesn't make sense. And then she's like, if it doesn't work, then we know that we have a bigger problem. But if birth control can fix it, and then we're fine. I walked out of there. I'm like, what a waste of my money. I'm like, this is exactly why I didn't want to come here. She didn't tell me anything. She told me what I already know. And she didn't even ask me, what do you think of birth control? Have you ever been on birth control? Do you want to take birth control? Okay, if you don't want to take birth control, we'll take the long way. It's more expensive. Give me the option of deciding instead of just throwing it at me and saying that's it. And so I left feeling very defeated and very confused, because I'm like, if there's nothing wrong physically, why am I suffering? Like, it was very disheartening. But then I just decided, okay, no eggs, no dairy. So I went dairy free, and that improved my symptoms tremendously, especially how long my period was, because it was now back down to like 7 days, 7, sometimes 8, but 7 days. I was happy with that. And then now PhD took over. It was getting rough, so I just focused on that. But the thing is that the more stressful my PhD was getting, the more excruciatingly painful the period pains were. Throwing up, like I would know so I would have pains before my periods, maybe like 3-4 days, sometimes even up to a week, right? Before my periods, and then excruciating pains on my periods, and then pains for a week after my periods. So the only time I'm not in pain is for 1 week. Well, 2 weeks, because my cycle is 5 weeks long. 2 weeks. That's the only time I don't have pain. Any other time, I'm in pain. But I'm out here, I'm functioning, I'm smiling, I'm giving talks, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but I'm suffering. And the thing about pain is that it's a warning system. So the fact that you're in that constant state is a trauma for your body. So it's like a feedback loop. My pain is creating stress. My stress is giving me stress, is giving me pain. So it was just terrible. It was horrible. I think that's when I started seeing more about the benefits of like being vegan, and all of that stuff. But you know how when you come across information online, it's like do or don't. It doesn't actually say why you shouldn't. How does it affect your body? The steps you can actually take in order to implement that change permanently. It's just a matter of, meat is bad for you, don't eat meat. And it's like, you're not actually telling me anything, Anyway, So, but I started seeing that. So I started trying to limit red meat. Fun fact, growing up, we didn't eat a lot of red meat at home. During the week, we actually had a lot of vegetarian meals now that I look back. And then our meat on Sundays was actually chicken. The rest of the week, it's veggies, it's fish. Red meat, we'd see it like if we have a braai or like some sort of special occasions. But we didn't grow up eating a lot of red meat. But now you're living in varsity, I think it took me like 2 or 3 years to realize like I can actually have cake whenever I want to. I can buy chocolate if I'm there and it's there. I want it, I buy it, I eat it, because at home, mom had gotten us to a point where our access to these foods was very limited. So you'd get them once in a while. But now you're in varsity, you can eat whatever you want. You can have popcorn, December chocolate, and nobody will say anything. Oh my God, So I was now eating whatever I wanted to, and obviously stress eating because of my PhD. And then 2019, my best friend fell pregnant, and I was supporting her on her pregnancy journey, going with her to all her gynae visits. And she was adamant. She's like, I want a black woman as my gynae. I am not compromising. And she found one, Dr. Palisa Pule in Kempton Park. And so I attended all her gynae visits with her. And I just felt like this warmth, I was like, no, she's really good. She makes, I guess that relatability and that familiarity makes you feel like this is someone that can help me. So when she was done with her antenatal visits, decided, okay, I should book a visit with her. And because she had seen me all along, I was kind of like pushed in quite early. And so we sat down and then we had a conversation. So just told her about my journey, essentially my symptoms and all that stuff, and what my concerns were, and my reproductive future, like basically what I want to do, how soon do I want to have kids, and things like that. So we had a really long conversation even before going into the examination room, which I highly appreciated. And she took the time to explain things to me about our bodies, So she's like, okay, a lot of the stuff I can only say after I've seen what's happening, because I don't want to send us in one direction and only come back to another. So great, went in there, did a scan. So she's sitting there. So me and my best friend are like chatting. She's there. She's like focusing. She's looking. First of all, she's like, okay, your uterus is tilted. It's not in the middle. It's facing to the, I think it was attached to some way. It's not in the middle as it's supposed to be. It's slightly shifted to the one side. She's like, okay, that could be some adhesions or another obstruction. So let's just keep looking. She looked. And then she's like, boom, there it is. I was like, what is that? She's like, it's a fibroid. I was like, really? She's like, yeah, it's uterine fibroids. That's what's causing all your problems. I exhaled a sigh of relief, like, oh, finally, Got dressed, went back into her office. And so she explained to me that, no, your heavy periods have been sort of like a precursor to you developing fibroids. Now I know that I was having heavy periods because of estrogen dominance, meaning in my body, my levels of estrogen are way, 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 way too high. So that was causing all my problems. That has always caused my problems. On my own journey of investigation, I now learned that, basically my diet was pushing the estrogen up. Cheese. We love cheese so much. Oh, guys, cheese is delicious. But it's probably one of the worst things you can eat as a woman. Because remember, milk is the substance that is meant to feed a growing calf, right? So it's jam-packed of hormones. Just on its own, without even factoring in the hormones that they pump into the cows. But just on its own, naturally, it's got hormones, it's got growth factors, it's got things that are meant to stimulate growth. Now, what cheese is a concentration of everything that's in the milk and clumped into this deliciousness. That's why it's so flavorful. It's just like, But it's essentially the equivalent of popping a hormonal pill in your body. Whereas a hormonal pill that was made by another animal, it's not even human hormones, it's cow hormones, So the amount of cheese I've had in my life, I was like, okay, that was culprit number one. But other dairy products also contribute. So it was very relieving to know that, okay, now I know what's wrong. But now came the anxiety of like, I have fibroids. Now I have to go understand and investigate what those are. So Dr. Bule was like, okay, what are your reproductive plans? I'm like, I want to have kids as soon as possible. I want to have kids as soon as possible. So 29 at the time. And then she's like, okay. So she gave me a treatment called Visane, Vissane. I think that's how you spell it, which is like an artificial progesterone treatment. Obviously, if you've got fibroids, you've got high estrogen. So the logic behind that was that I take it to balance out the high estrogen and slow down or potentially arrest the growth of the fibroids, right? Mind you, up until this point, I'm anti anything hormonal, not knowing that, girl, you're eating cheese, that's hormonal. But I'm anti anything hormonal because I'm like, that's not fixing. But because she explained to me what the purpose of it is, I was okay. I was like, okay, no, let's try it. And at that point, I'm like, girl, you have to at least try something. So I was like, okay, no, I don't mind taking that. She's like, I'll give you a treatment for about 3 months while you also decide what your long-term plan is. Because she said, either have an open myomectomy, so where they cut open your uterus, take out the fibroids, stitch you up, and put everything back in. Or I have a UFE, uterine fibroid embolism. So what that does is that it cuts off blood supply directly to not the uterus, the fibroids themselves. And then what the logic is that, which does happen to some women, the fibroids are starved of nutrients and blood, and then they shrink over time. And then she said, no, the thing is that the other one, you need about 2 years, so you can't fall pregnant in 2 years. But the myomectomy, once we feel like your uterus is healed, even within a year, you can start having kids. So I had to go think about that, what I want to do long term and things like that. So there I am Googling Googling how it works, going on YouTube, the internet. I'm not seeing a lot of information. Then I start taking it that December. So when I went to see her, it was in November. And my motivation for going to her is that on my birthday in 2019, I was sick to the point that I had to go to the emergency room because my pains were uncontrollable. I couldn't stand, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't eat anything, even a little bit of water. When you throw up to the point that your stomach is empty and there's nothing in there, but you're still throwing up. And kupinyongo, that's how I was. So I had to go to the hospital so that they can put in a drip to give me painkillers because I couldn't ingest them. That's when we were like, okay, no, we have to do something. This isn't life. So that was also one of the reasons why I was like, let me give these hormones a try. So I had to wait until the first day of my period. Well, she didn't tell me that, but I figured that out from the internet, that it's better you do that with any like hormone therapy. Wait until the first day of your period, because essentially that's when your natural body's hormones are at their lowest. So at least whatever effect you're trying to have on your hormones, it will sort of like follow your natural curve, unlike just a disruption in the middle. So I waited for the first day of my period, which was like Christmas that year. Fine, my period wasn't too terrible, surprisingly, but I think it's because of the hormones I was taking at the time. I was a bit functional, but I was very moody. Day 7, my period is supposed to end, and I can see it. It's getting less and less and less. Aibo. Next day, day 8, we are back. I'm like, aibo. Today's supposed to be my last day. So I go back on the internet. Women are saying, no, so, like it causes this bleeding. I'm like, I'm gonna be patient. Okay, I drink it for another week, but it literally every day I'm bleeding, clots. I'm like, no way in hell am I doing this. I'm like, I gave it a try. I'm not doing this no more. And some women like, no, you have to wait 3 to 6 months to see a difference. I'm like, I'm not going to be bleeding for 3 to 6 months. I'm not doing that. Kaboom. No, I'm not doing that. So I stopped the treatment, and I didn't want to go back to Dr. Palesa because I felt like then I would need to go back to her with an actual decision. As life would have it, 2 months later, I fell pregnant. And it was a beautiful surprise, but also very anxiety inducing, because I'm like, pregnancy with fibroids is not ideal, high risk, and lo and behold, within 8 weeks into my pregnancy, I was having bleeding and spotting. Went to the hospital, had a terrible experience, which confirms my bias of hating doctors and hospitals. I was like, you see, this is why we don't come here. But anyway, My pregnancy was difficult because of the fibroids, where they were sitting, and the baby growing alongside them, pains throughout, cramping and paining throughout. And then at 7 months, I had preterm labor, had to have that, try to put that under control. I had little to no mobility. I couldn't really walk. I started going to the chiro. That helped me get my mobility back. 34 weeks, my waters broke. Had to have an emergency C-section. Went back home. Now, during my pregnancy, because I was also aware of before I fell pregnant, I was already trying to cut back a lot more on the foods that I know I shouldn't eat. So already eggs and dairy products I wasn't eating. But my biggest vice was meat. But just before falling pregnant, I had managed to remove meat from my diet, right? But I hadn't figured out what to bring in. So I had removed all the stuff that I had found along the way that were very high inflammatory and not good for my situation. But I hadn't learned how to bring good food in. Even now, I'm still struggling with that. So when I came back from the hospital, at 8 weeks, my parents were like, "You're eating everything. Next fibroid you're gonna eat." You know? So I tried eating eggs while I was pregnant. I started cramping and spotting, so already I couldn't do that. I tried to introduce a bit of dairy. It also was like, no. So the only thing I could stick to essentially was having more meat in my diet and just gorging myself with anything else. And we got through to 34 weeks. So now, after giving birth, I didn't take a contraceptive again. At the hospital, they offer you a contraceptive. I was like, "Ni grand." They were like, "Uzobuya, next month you'll be back here." I'm like, "No, don't worry about me." So I didn't take it because at that point in time, I wanted to understand how pregnancy would affect my body without any interference from hormones. And lo and behold, that thing that those grannies were saying, pregnancy will heal you, was the absolute truth. Because 6 weeks after giving birth, I got my period back. But it was a 3-day, not heavy, it was a 3-day period, no pain, it was not heavy. I was like, is this how people live? No. I'm like, next month, I'm going to see flames. Month 2, the same. Listen, I was having a textbook period. Every 28 days, my period would come. I would not have pains. And this time, I am exclusively breastfeeding. So, Manoko was here by the breast all day, every day, on demand, whatever she wanted, you know. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's true. Pregnancy actually does reset your hormones and it does heal you. But now the problem is that breastfeeding hunger. You know, when you're pregnant, you get hungry, but you can't eat whatever you want because here's this human pushing your intestines to here. Now, when you're breastfeeding, that baby is out, but the hunger is tenfold. You will eat. And so you don't have to worry about you are being fed. Breakfast tea, lunch tea, dinner tea, snack. I was eating throughout the whole day, right? But my period was fine. And it was hard for me to regulate my diet during then because my body was just telling me to eat anything and everything so I can feed this human, you know? And I slowly started seeing my period revert back to pre-pregnancy. It took a while, but within a year of giving birth, my period was back to the way it was. But I knew and understood then that the reason why my period is going back is because of my diet. My body did what it needed to do to reset my hormones. If I had maybe gone vegan and cut out junk and just eat a cleaned diet, I would probably be better off than what I am right now. But I was like, I knew it. So for me, that was also a proof of concept in a way that my body is capable of being healthy. My body, my period is capable of not being the monster that I've known for almost 30 years of my life, you know? So that gave me motivation to learn more, to say, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do. You know, cut out the meat, cut out the animal products, eat more fruits and veggies, you know, all these herbs and supplements, they will help. But, right, the way my brain works, I needed to have a deeper understanding of the inner mechanisms of why do these foods actually cause the effect that I have seen all along. I see taking them away, but I need to see it in my mind, like at the cellular level, my endocrine system and everything, you know. Our diet affects everything. It is the beginning of life. Our diet, like I don't know how much more to emphasize this. Our diet is our safe haven. Anything and everything that goes into our mouth will determine whether you are moving yourself more towards life or more towards death. This is something that my chiropractor told me. She's like, every day as you exist on earth, every decision that you make, it doesn't matter what it is, whatever you do, it's either taking you more towards life or more towards death. So, you know. And so then so when I was pregnant at 8 weeks, the biggest fibroid that they could find measured 8 centimeters. And so in my mind, I just had the number 8. So once my period started being crazy again, which was like last year, 2021, but no, like October, November, before Manoko turned a year, that's when I was like, okay, I need to take action. So now I'm starting to consider having a myomectomy. But now I'm like, okay, but I've already had a C-section. If I have a myomectomy, it's another surgery. So my uterus strength is being compromised again, which means I am limiting the progression of my pregnancies. Already they're going to be even more high risk that time. I'm getting older. So if I go and have another surgery, then I have to wait to heal, and then I can only have 2 pregnancies at most after that, according to what most doctors recommend or allow. So I didn't like that idea. I absolutely did not like that idea. But at the same time, I did not have the mental strength of dealing with the healing process from my surgery. The healing from my C-section was long and gruesome. Externally, my scar was fine, but internally, I was still very compromised. Like I could, apart from my crazy period, my uterus, because of the fibroids, because they didn't take them out when I had Manoko, they just cut me open, stitched me up, and sent me home. I took almost about a year to actually heal properly, where my period was coming and ending on time, and I didn't have any like bleeding in between or extended bleeding. So it took me a year for my uterus to heal after my C-section. I'm like, now I must go back and they must cut in me again, cut out muscle tissues of where the fibroids are. That's going to leave my fibroids the uterus so compromised. And then I'm like, no, I don't like that thought at all, you know. But because at the time I felt like I was really struggling to get a grip on my diet and my lifestyle, I was like, okay, maybe I can take them out, and then without the stress of having had a surgery, or without the stress of the fibroids being there and my period being crazy, maybe I can like deal with healing, but then have a normal period for however long I do, and then, you know. But then I was like, but knowing myself, the fact that the fibroids aren't there anymore and I have a normal period, I'm going to want to live my best life. So I was like, okay, that's not going to work for me. Then I was like, okay, let me implement this lifestyle change prior to having a surgery. That way, even after the surgery, it's my lifestyle. Because the thing about myomectomies is that they grow back. So you go and have a surgery, take them out, and then they grow back. And the gynae that I went to consult with had said, absolutely 2 years you have to wait before you try fall pregnant. And I was like, but some say immediately. He's like, I don't care about those. Nakere 2 years. So he was like, I'm going to put you on a contraceptive. I was like, I'm having a surgery. They might grow back. I'm going on. I'm not getting younger. Like I can't put my body through all of that. So, but at that consultation, when he measured the fibroid, it was now 6 centimeters. And I was like, well, would you look at that? This little thing is getting smaller. So that was very encouraging to say, whatever things I'm trying, they are working. I'm not perfect. I'm not consistent, you know, but the little bit that I've done is contributing. So that motivated me even more to like, oh, I am going all out. I'm going ham. That was in July. And it's been a roller coaster. Some months are better than others. But I literally see it in real time that if this month, between this period and the next period, I cut out the junk, I eat healthily, my period is manageable relative to what I usually go through. It's manageable, meaning if I wake up and I take a painkiller, it's gonna work. I'm gonna be okay. I might not be as functional, but it's not like in the past where I'd pop a pill and throw it back up, and then literally my body would shut itself down to a point where I feel like I would pass out and not really fall asleep. Then when I wake up, I feel a bit okay. Then I like, hey man, khalere overdose, I'm you know. But I've seen that whatever little bit I try has made a difference. The fibroid has gotten smaller by at least 2 centimeters. That's a big deal. And then recently, because I'm hearing, I've always known about certain herbs and supplements that you can take to assist the process. I recently found a product that combined supplements that I've tried on their own, and I've seen a difference, and it has them in one. I was like, oh, less stress for me. I don't have to boil this and measure that and remember what I took. It's just one product. And the month that I started taking that, my period that month was, I was having fun. I was in the streets socializing. Like everyone at home were like, are you sure you're on your periods? I'm like, yeah. They're like, you're alive, you know. But what happened, I started taking that, and then I started relaxing my diet. We were eating meat every day. I was having December, like I was just misbehaving because I was like, oh, this little thing is gonna work. Did I not die the next month? So you can't out supplement a bad diet. It starts with the diet. If you can fix the diet, you can fix everything. So that's me right now. I'm at a point where I am trying to come up with healthy alternatives, because it's very easy to say, okay, I'm gonna stop eating meat, or when I stop having dairy, no eggs, you know. It's very easy to eliminate things, but what you then need to learn to do is to, what do you then replace those things with, especially because your body is used to how you've been eating, you know, and your body's gonna say, we want that cheese, bring back that cheese. Why are you taking away the cheese, you know? So it requires, it's been trial and error. Even for me, it's been really, really trial and error. But the more I follow other women and on their journeys and see how they've done it and listen to their stories, every now and then I'll get that motivation. There's one specific lady on YouTube, the Fibroid Shrinking Kitchen Club, and so she was vegan when she found out she has fibroids, and by then she was already pregnant. And during her breastfeeding, she cut out grains, so all grains. So she was literally eating fruits and vegetables only. And I know it sounds extreme, because compared to your diet right now, fruits and vegetables are that component. Then you've got all the other ones, you know. So you're like, if I take these away, and in 3 months she was able to get rid of all her fibroids, including one that was 12 centimeters. So I was like, oh my gosh, that it's possible, you know. So it's just a matter of educating ourselves on the food. So how do you balance the needed nutrition? I'm still trying to figure that out. I guess that's why I keep going back to eating meat. Woo, you know. So like it's you don't want to do too much too quickly. Like with me now, eggs and dairy, if I see eggs, I don't even like, I want eggs. I'm just like, that's not for me. Dairy, I don't eat cheese. Anything with dairy, I might do. I don't crave yogurt. I don't crave ice cream. Like, you know, the only time I'll have like dairy is in like cake, you know, because I still eat cake. Maybe one day when I'm older, I'll not have cake. But just to say, it's not perfect. It's a work in progress. So now what I'm planning on doing is getting a lot of options of like legumes and beans, because those are great replacements for for meat, you know. Yeah, so it's just difficult when you live with people who don't mind eating meat Monday to Monday, and red meat, beef at that, you know. So that's just my journey. Right now I'm in the process of healing my body, and one thing I realized is that I might be focusing on my fibroids and my uterine health, but the benefits of it are holistic. Because one thing about me that it actually only clicked today, I have not had a breakout in, I think since I've been pregnant. I've never, even during my pregnancy, okay, that was probably Manugo. But I've not had a breakout. And I used to be someone that every now and then, there was this pimple that would always come here. Every month it was here. And it hasn't, you know. I don't know what's the reason. So one of the things that I've noticed, again in retrospect, that have contributed to my health outside of my diet is lifestyle, right? So when I got to varsity, I became stagnant. In high school, we used to walk to school, play sports, you know, at least 4 to 5 months in a year, you're doing some sort of exercise. But now at varsity, I was chilling. I think the only thing I did was yoga, and even that I wasn't consistent with. So having a stagnant lifestyle is not good, because your body needs to flush out toxins. I didn't poop as often as I should, nor was I worried, right? So as an adult, you should be pooping every day, at least once. If you poop more than that, great. Obviously, if it's diarrhea, not so much. But you should be pooping every day. So what happens is your poop is one of your body's biggest systems of elimination. So your body, listen, your body is working every day to flush toxins. Your body is working every day to heal itself. So your poop is where all the junk is supposed to be taken out. But if you don't poop every day or regularly enough, that junk sits in your body and it gets reabsorbed. So one of the things I learned about estrogen is that your body eliminates it through your poop. But if you don't poop soon enough, your body reabsorbs it. And the reabsorbed estrogen is more potent than the one that you've just ingested, or the one that your body has just produced. So if you're not pooping, if you're constantly constipated, that's a big red flag. You might find that if you get your bowels to be more regular, that'll do a lot of good for your body, not just with your uterus. So pooping, exercise, obviously the stuff that you eat. If most of the time you're eating pre-packaged food, so not natural food, meaning like food that comes out of a box or a packet at Koshobong, and you're not eating like food in its most natural form, if that's what your diet mostly consists of, you're in trouble. You need to clean that up, because that is just adding estrogen. So a lot of the foods that we eat have a lot of preservatives and a lot of chemicals, and those chemicals, our body recognizes them as estrogen. So it increases that, particularly for women who have very heavy periods and very long periods. Anything, the textbook says 7 days, but in my opinion, I think 7 days is still too long. So if your period is like more than 5 days and it can be heavy, then you need to look into that, because these foods have estrogen-like molecules. Then your body thinks, oh, there's a lot of estrogen, and it goes straight to your womb. It thickens that lining. It's a lot, guys. The things that happen in our body are a lot. I can't get into everything right now, so this will probably be something that we discuss next time. But that's my story. I hope you guys will join me on this journey as I share what I've learned, and hope that it will empower you guys to make better decisions about your food. Number one, it starts with our food, and to just try to do as much as possible to heal, and know that what society is telling us about our periods, it's not true. It's not supposed to hurt. It's not supposed to prevent you from participating in life. It's not supposed to give you sleepless nights, you know. It's not meant to be. God created our bodies perfectly. There's nothing that God put in our bodies that doesn't have a purpose, right? But our lifestyle, our modern lifestyle, has pushed us to be out of touch with how God has created our bodies to function. We no longer spend time in the sun. We are eating foods that our bodies are not adapted to digesting or living off of, right? So I'll be sharing more. I'll be sharing more with you guys. I don't know if you guys have any questions before it's late, but do you guys have any questions? Maybe, I don't know. No questions? No? Going once? Going twice? Okay, no questions. So what I'm thinking I will do is that today's Thursday. Maybe I'll keep this day if Eskom is cooperative. So maybe Thursdays, not every Thursday, maybe every second Thursday, we can do a live where I share something related to a specific topic. Okay, Noni. I'll wait. Okay, I'm waiting. So you still haven't treated your fibroids. I haven't treated them in the medical sense of going for surgery or taking hormones. No, I've chosen to do it naturally. So there is a herbal supplement tonic that I drink because it's got herbs that I have been drinking on their own, but I've just decided that this is a lot better. Lebo, I see your question. So I've decided to take the natural route because even if I have a surgery, they can grow back. And having a surgery will compromise the strength of my uterus and will limit the number of pregnancies I can have. And yeah, I'm hoping I don't have to have a C-section in the future. So I've decided to take a more holistic approach to strengthening my entire being so that my future pregnancies are a lot less stressful. So if you're in that sense, I haven't treated it, but I am treating them and taking a more natural approach, which I feel will benefit other parts of my body. So Lebo asked, how can one help a teenager? Yo, guys, with teenagers, it's tough. It's tough because their bodies are still growing. So it's again, clean up the diet. That's the number one thing. Clean up the diet. Take out dairy. Take out the cheeses. Reduce the eggs. Reduce the meat. Have more fresh foods like fruits and vegetables, like real vegetables. Reduce carbs. Cut out sugar. All these things we're always hearing people talking about on the internet. It's true, guys. It is absolutely true. Like today, I had, those popcorns that are like in caramel. I dished out some for Manogo and she didn't finish them, and I popped one in my mouth. As soon as it went into my mouth, the side of my uterus where the fibroid is went. I was like, okay, I hear you. I'm not supposed to have it, So it's just really about trying to be as healthy as possible and well-rounded, and at least eliminating is difficult, I know, but reducing. So or maybe before you take something out, you can retry it to have something more of something else. So as your diet is, just say, okay, I'm going to drink more water and make sure I poop. Okay, I'm going to have more vegetables and a more variety of vegetables, not just the same ones that you're always having. Okay. Oh, I'm going to replace my cooking oil and only cook with olive oil and no other oil, because the other oils actually are not good for us as well. So yeah, you just have to do trial and error and see what works for you. And I will say that it takes time for you to see the changes when you've added something or removed something. Obviously, our bodies are different. Like with me, with eggs, I saw it immediately. Okay, the eggs are a problem. Now with dairy, as soon as I ingest it, I feed it in my uterus. So I'm at a point where my body reacts very quickly to anything that I'm not supposed to eat. It'll just be me and my stubbornness on some. If I die, I die. Then I actually feel like I'm dying, So I think it's also unfair to expect the teenager to be the only one to make the changes when everybody else in the house can indulge in whatever they want to. Because the thing about our families is that everyone is sick with something. Someone has diabetes, someone has hypertension, something is wrong with someone all the time. So it's just a matter of us being honest with ourselves to say, guys, actually siyagula sonke. It's just that her problem might be more stressful because it's so like alarming, But yeah, we would all benefit from this. Let me scroll back and read the other questions. Is fish also bad? Can we replace meat with it now? And then I'm scared of sugar, ran away from it. Fish is not bad. It's actually quite good for you. It's very, very good for you. Yeah, no, you can replace it with it. You absolutely can. Once had a conversation about such in class, and I think AUE is actually better than myomectomy. It depends. Some women have had an AUE and it didn't work, some women have had it and it compromised their uterine health, in that the blood vessels didn't only kill the supply to the fibroid, but to other parts of the uterine wall. So it affects the integrity of your uterine lining wall, where an egg would need to implant. So oftentimes, well, the doctors that are more conservative will say, if you want to have kids, they don't recommend you do that. There's one lady I saw on YouTube, she had it. It helped her symptoms for like a year or two, then they came back. And then when she eventually decided to have a myomectomy and they cut open into her, they found that one of the bigger fibroids where they had done the UAE, it didn't disintegrate. If anything, it bodile. I don't know if you guys understand. Like, it rot inside her. So when they took it out, it wasn't even like a ball of mass anymore. It was like pussy and meshy. But essentially, a lot of the questions that you guys are asking me is some of the things that I really want to present to you in a more thorough way. Instead of just saying, oh, do this, don't do that, because based on my experience, that isn't sustainable for me. I need to understand why, and I need to be pointed in the right directions of what to do and what not to do. So I'm hoping that I can really bring you guys comprehensive information that's practical as well, because a lot of the things that you find online, I find that the holistic women's health community is very arrogant, number one, because people sort of like look down on other women, like, why are you still eating that? It's going to make you sick. Oh my gosh, I'm so much better. I find that a lot of times that's what I hear women talk about. Like, you can just stop eating that. And it's like, it's not that easy, So I'm hoping that I can share the information in such a way that it's not intimidating, number one, and it's practical, that you can just try it, I think the fact that so many of us are suffering in silence is testament to the fact that we are not okay, and the way we've been living is not okay. There's also this misconception that in science they call it skinny on the outside, obese on the inside, where we look at the aesthetic of a person. If you look a certain way, no, ushapo, but our bodies internally are actually not okay. So the benefit of this is that it has a positive impact on your entire being, not just your uterus. Once you start making changes to help your uterus, the uterus is just where it's manifesting, but it's affecting every part of your body. It's affecting your immune system. It's affecting your hair. It's affecting everything. And we are of the time that when we have a problem, we apply things on the surface, but it's actually from deep within, So if we can fix it from the inside out, then you will glow, your hair will flourish, your skin will flourish, you'll have energy, you'll think better, you'll feel better, you'll just be your best self. You'll literally just be your best self. It's just that your uterus is where you are hearing it, feeling it the most, and screaming at you. And obviously, the women in my age group and older, and maybe even younger, that are desiring to be mothers and are struggling, and they have all sorts of ailments and diseases, and sometimes they even have unexplained infertility. This is something that I've seen in other people assist them in being able to conceive naturally. Just these little changes here and there give your body a chance to breathe, to heal, to regroup, can make wonders, So, and outside of being able to conceive, just a better quality of life. So the blood type diet, I have seen quite a lot of people talk about it. I haven't researched it much. I guess it would help, but I'm a bit weary of that, because it's speaking about blood type in a very broad sense, right? Because as one thing I've learned as well about myself is that as Black people, as all people of all races, we're not the same, right? We evolved in different parts of the world, being exposed to different environments and most certainly different foods. So sometimes you might go for that blood type diet, right? And it would help you in understanding maybe how your body metabolizes certain foods, certain minerals. You know, it can be an added benefit to that. But sometimes your genetic background plays an even bigger role in understanding what is actually best for you. Like, one thing I discovered is that as Black women, there's a certain enzyme in the liver called COMT, something transferase, right? And this enzyme is involved in the metabolism, which means breaking down of estrogen, right? Because your body produces estrogen, but when it's done, it needs to be flushed out. You can't just keep having estrogen circulating in your body. But because of the food that we eat, we continuously introducing estrogen into our body, right? And our body has to constantly flush it out. But as Black women, we have a genetic mutation in that gene that makes it work less efficiently than all the other races. So if you take women from the East, Asian, your Chinese groups, your Indian groups, your Arabic groups, your Caucasian groups, and your Black women group, and you check this enzyme, as Black women, it doesn't work as well as other women. That's why our body shape and structure predominantly is very curvaceous and heavy bottomed. It comes from that high presence of estrogen. So there's certain nuances about the Black body that we need to understand and live according to. You know, I know I'm going to sound like a hotep saying Africa, but it's actually true. We evolved in the sun all the time in Africa. Our Black skin protects us against sun damage, but it also makes our body less efficient in producing vitamin D from the sun. Now, how that was counted is that we've got melanin protection against sun damage, but you're spending your whole time in the sun barely clothed. So your body is pashash. Caucasians in the north didn't have a lot of sunlight. That's why they had to be fairer, so that whatever little bit of sunlight they have, their body can capture it and make as much vitamin D in a short space of time as possible. So across the entire world, Black people, we are vitamin D deficient. And I also learned that vitamin D helps in shrinking fibroids. So the fact that I have a vitamin D deficiency is also allowing fibroids to thrive, which also makes sense when you look at the statistics that Black women have the highest prevalence of fibroids and other uterine health issues of all women across all races. So there are a lot of things that we need to consider when it comes to our health, not just look at it in one side. Obviously, it's a stepwise process. You know, you start looking at one thing, oh, that seems to work, let me try it. You start looking at a thing, okay, that doesn't work. You know, so I am looking at it from that perspective and say, what, as a Black person with Black ancestry, what foods were my ancestors living off of that reduce their illnesses? I'll never say they never got sick, but it reduced their illnesses, you know. And Pape Tshweu was introduced to us by colonizers. We didn't farm it. It was brought here. We ate mabele, you know. Vegetables, root vegetables, perfect, you know. Leafy green vegetables, perfect. Fruits, not so much, because the tropics are the ones who had the fruits. Fruits are very high in sugar. So when you now, this is on top of everything else. I'm not saying don't eat fruits, but I'm just saying for us, then it means that we are more sensitive to the presence of sugar, because in our environment, we weren't exposed to a lot of sugary foods, nor did we eat it all the time, you know? So our bodies are adapted and evolved to live in a certain way. So the way we're living today, you're eating food from the East, Chinese food, Italian food, Middle Eastern food, and you're sick. Because your body is like, we actually aren't adapted to get rid of all of this food. An interesting point, people in the Middle East and predominantly Muslim countries, right? They eat a lot of sugary food. They eat a lot of carby food, but their incidences of a lot of lifestyle diseases like diabetes, cancer, hypertension are low. And compared to other countries. And the reason for that, it's been found that it's because they do intermittent fasting when they're going through Ramadan. So for a month, they will limit how often they eat. Even though when they eat junk, the fact that for a certain period of time, they don't eat anything actually gives their bodies enough time to heal itself. you know. So that's also just something else that we need to look at. How often we eat too much. You can't, from sunrise to sunset, when you're eating breakfast, you're having a snack, you're having lunch, having a snack. And I know they say we should do that because you are stabilizing your sugar levels, they shouldn't drop. But what you're actually doing is that you're making your body consistently produce insulin, and it never stops producing insulin. Then you're going to develop type 2 diabetes because your body is resistant to that insulin, or it constantly has that tap open. Like, I give her the insulin every day, you know. So there's a lot. There is a lot. So what I was saying in the previous live was that I hope that we can keep this conversation going. Maybe every week or every second week, pick a topic, formulate it in a way that I can explain to you guys why this is beneficial or why this is harmful to your body, and start the conversation about how we can make better decisions using food to get better. I'm going to talk more about the diet and the food and the things that you can control before I start giving you guys the supplements, because one thing that happens is that you run to the supplements but your diet is still crap, and then you're still getting sick, and then you're like, these things don't work. They do work. You're just stressing your body. So let's fix our diet. Let's understand the food that we eat and what it does to our bodies, and then make decisions based on that. It's not going to be perfect. That's fine. So long as you're making a conscious effort to say, today I'm having broccoli, come hell or high water, you know, instead of every day, you know, today I'm having cabbage, you know, today I'm having spinach, today I'm having dinawa, beans, kamabele, you know, those foods are actually very good for us. But thank you guys. It's 9:30. Tomorrow, school and the likes. I will definitely save this. Sorry I missed your questions in the previous live. I would have loved to engage with you guys more there, but you can get me on the DMs, but I would prefer if you go to my other page and DM there, because this page is busy. But I'll probably check more on the other page before, because that's where we'll be moving this conversation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I love you so much. I look forward to seeing you guys living your best lives, coming into your best selves holistically, being the best versions that God created you to be, with intention, with knowledge and understanding, so that you can be fruitful. The handle of the other page is Uterine Health ZA. I don't think there's any underscore there. Yeah, at Uterine Health ZA. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing you guys telling me about your success stories, which I believe we will have. We will have. It's time for us to heal. Heal. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.